The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Willie. Brought to you by Choice Hotels. Econo Lodge and Roadway Inn hotels are serving up double points for every qualifying stay. Book at choicehotels.com. Now, here's the man who's been recognized as radio's best, the recipient of not one but two prestigious Marconi Awards for his broadcast excellence, the one and only Bill Cunningham.
Like Billy Cunningham said, news tonight as we monitor CNN and Fox News. At least 24 Americans are dead tonight in Joplin, Missouri, which, as you know, is in southwest Missouri. And there's a terrible line of storms going into Missouri, plus Arkansas having just left Kansas. And so we pray for the dead, and we hope those injured are down to a minimum. But for those of our thousands of listeners in southwest Missouri and southern Missouri or northeast Arkansas, now would be a good time to take cover. So a terrible line of storms from St. Louis all the way to Branson. So until then, I tell you what, I've been looking forward to this guest for the past 3 or 4 months. I had on Dr. Jerome Corsi, I think last about 4 or 5 months ago. And his new book is out. It's been out now about 5 days. Where's the Birth Certificate? But for the threat of this book being released, I am certain the president would not have released his so-called long-form birth certificate that's hardly settled the matter nonetheless. Dr. Jerome Corsi, welcome again to the Bill Cunningham Show.
Bill, great pleasure to be back with you. Thank you.
Dr. Corsi, for those who may be uninitiated, describe and explain, give me the 2 or 3 top reasons why the long-form birth certificate released by Obama about 3 weeks ago could be, again, not legitimate.
Well, I think it's fraudulent. I mean, the document released by the White House was an electronic document. Not only does it show layers, it shows obvious signs of manipulation of the data. And if the White House really wanted to authenticate the document, there were no electronic birth certificates in 1961. We have to have the original long-form paper birth certificate subject from Hawaii, released from their deep vault, and subject to forensic analysis. And the White House and the Hawaii Department of Health have refused to do that.
Explain why the number appears to be the wrong number in sequence.
Well, the system in Hawaii was put in place by Charles Bennett in 1955, preparing for Hawaii to be a state. I have the article from the Hawaii Health Journal, which describes the system. When it was stamped by the Registrar General in the Hawaii Department of Health in Honolulu, is given a number, a birth certificate number. So Barack Obama's birth certificate was stamped August 8th, and it was given number 10641. The Nordyke twins, born the next day in the hospital, registered 3 days later than Obama, August 11th, were given numbers 10637 and 10638. It's impossible that Obama's birth certificate that was registered 3 days earlier had a higher birth certificate number, unless, of course, it was fraudulently created and the forgerers picked the wrong number.
Okay, now the Nordyke twins, I understand, and also there's something about the ineligibility that deals with natural born parents, and I think the same thing would probably apply to Marco Rubio and to Bobby Jindal, the governor of Louisiana. But wouldn't you fairly say that it's going to be very difficult for a federal court ever to definitively rule that natural-born citizens involve individuals whose moms and dads are also American citizens at the time of the birth? Because I think go ahead.
Right. Well, the challenge. Remember, the Democrats challenged McCain, and Obama did. I mean, the entire mainstream media. I mean, I'm looking at the ABC News. Barack Obama is challenging. Here's McCain's citizenship called into question. It's ABC News, April 10th, 2008. Washington Post, McCain's birth abroad stirs legal debate. I mean, this was a major issue, and McCain submitted his birth credentials to Congress. Barack Obama co-sponsored the resolution. It said McCain had 2 U.S. citizen parents at the time of his birth, a key qualification to be a natural-born citizen, more restrictive than just to be a citizen. And Congress ruled that the founders never meant to exclude somebody as natural-born whose parents were overseas defending the military, defense of the United States when the person was born. Barack Obama never submitted his birth credentials to Congress. Barack Obama knew that he did not have 2 U.S. citizen parents when he was born. His father was a Kenyan citizen, which meant Barack Obama was a dual citizen at birth, a citizen of the Commonwealth of Great Britain, Kenya being a Commonwealth country, as well as the United States when he was born, and that was a clear disqualification. The founders never meant, especially for someone with ties to British citizenship, to be president of the United States. That was the whole purpose of Article 2, Section 1, to make sure there was no divided citizenship loyalties to anybody being president.
Isn't there also a problem with the name of the hospital on the birth certificate from 1963, that the particular hospital in question was not called by that name in 1963?
It wasn't called that name, but I do see other birth certificates with that name on it. I think more significant problems have to do with an analysis of the electronic file released by the White House. It's not just that in Adobe there's layers in the file, some legitimate articles, objects that are scanned, you can see layers in, but these layers in the Obama birth certificate show clear signs of data manipulation. This is a document, Barack Obama released birth certificate April 27th from the White House, that was electronically created and modified, and I think we're very close to identifying several of the source original birth certificates from which this composite that the White House put out was created and fabricated and fraudulently done so.
Dr. Jerome Corsi, is there also a problem with whether he was adopted by Barry Soetoro when he went to Indonesia as a child? It appears very likely he was, because only Indonesian citizens can go to public schools, and very likely he was adopted, and he never regained American citizenship status when he came back at the age of 10 or 11.
Well, in fact, on page 210 of the book, and I've got 125 exhibits in the book, Where's the Birth Certificate, so you can really for yourself see the original documents from which I draw the analysis. Then listed as Barry Soetoro, Barack Obama was registered as an Indonesian citizen in the Indonesian schools. And on page 215, Exhibit 100, I show Barack Obama's mother's her passport announcement, her passport file, in which she makes an application to remove Barack Obama from her passport from Indonesia. She crosses out Barack Obama's name, indicating there was a nationality issue, and writes under Barack Obama's name, Soy Barca, the Indonesian surname. First time we'd seen Barack Hussein Obama, Soy Barca, again indicating Barack Obama was adopted in Indonesia and had an Indonesian surname. Now, if Barack Obama even had a Indonesian passport, and again, we don't have the passport records from Barack Obama or his school records, a whole host of records lacking. If Barack Obama was adopted in Indonesia, that again would have made him a dual citizen and compromised his natural-born citizenship status.
Now, when he went to Pakistan in 1981, he would have been about 19 or 20 years old. How did he get into Pakistan without an American passport?
Well, we don't know. Again, Barack Obama refuses to. We don't even have a list, Bill, of all the countries in which Barack Obama had traveled. He's probably traveled in countries we know nothing about. Going to Pakistan in the 1970s, when Soviet Union was invading Pakistan, Barack Obama would have had a much easier time going with an Indonesian passport. We don't know. Barack Obama won't release the passport records.
And he's never answered a question. No one's even asked him a question, right?
No one's asked the question. I've asked the question, but again, he's not been asked the question directly by the mainstream media that refuses to address these issues and keeps it all, protected. The wagons are circled around Barack Obama. Had it been John McCain, I assure you, the Washington Post would have hired 40 people to investigate John McCain's travel as a non-natural born citizen or dual citizen or on an Indonesian passport. Had McCain traveled to Pakistan, but since it's Barack Obama, he gets a pass.
You might recall that in August of '08, there were plane loads of reporters going from all over this country to Wasilla, Alaska, to discover every possible shred of evidence about Sarah Palin. And they spent weeks and weeks there digging up all the dirt they could on Sarah Palin. They didn't do the same thing with Obama, did they?
No, in fact, I'm able to demonstrate. If you read Where's the Birth Certificate, you'll see the fabrications Barack Obama has told about his life, material fabrications. Mommy and Daddy did not stay together until Daddy went to Harvard in 1962. Barack Obama's mother was in 3 weeks of his birth, went to Seattle, where she enrolled in the University of Washington in Seattle, and began taking night courses. She did not return until after Barack Obama Sr. left. In fact, now that we have the immigration file for Barack Obama Sr., what I write in the book is confirmed. Even the Immigration Service declared and concluded Barack Obama Sr.'s marriage to Ann Dunham, the mother, was a sham affair. There's no certificate of marriage.
No.
They never lived together as man and wife, and the INS was very uncertain. Barack Obama Sr. was even the father. So the INS declared that this marriage was arranged by Barack Obama Sr. only so he could extend his visa stay in the United States, hopefully by saying he had a U.S. wife and child.
Now, who said that? The INS, that's a federal government agency.
Correct, the Immigration and Naturalization Service.
And that's their statement, and it was a sham marriage. In fact, there's no evidence they were ever married, and there's no evidence they were ever divorced.
That's right, or lived. Well, they got divorced. I mean, people sometimes divorce people they're not married to officially or legally in terms of a marriage certificate and marriage ceremony. A good example is common law marriages. Ann Dunham divorced Barack Obama, but there's never been a marriage certificate found. And I'm convinced, and argue in the book very strongly, Barack Obama was not born in Hawaii. He was born in Kenya. And now we've got the Kenyan government records. His grandmother, Sarah, has been saying for years that she was present at Barack Obama's birth in Mombasa. The Kenyan government searched for Barack Obama's birth records and concluded recently that Barack Obama, the 1961 birth records in Hawaii were tampered with in a criminal fashion so as to disguise the fact that Barack Obama had been born there and to remove any records which indicate Barack Obama's birth in Kenya.
And the reason on August the 9th, 1961, about 5 days later, there's a birth announcement in the Honolulu Advertiser, was simply proud grandparents announcing the fact that they had a grandson.
Well, the grandparents could have easily come in and filed the birth. In Hawaii, the family could file a birth as an Hawaiian birth, even if the birth wasn't in Hawaii. The Hawaii Department of Health had no investigative unit, and the birth announcements in the newspaper were triggered by the registration of the birth of the Hawaii Department of Health. Both newspapers published the birth announcements in the exact same verbiage and the exact same order. So it would be easy if the grandparents came in and registered the birth announcement would have occurred, but it's not proof that Obama was actually born in Hawaii.
And for those like Chris Matthews always talking about a grand conspiracy involving events of some 50 years ago, this was not Ann Dunham's parents in Honolulu thinking, okay, this kid's going to be president. They were simply proud grandparents who wanted the fact of their grandson's birth to be in the paper. That's all it was.
Well, no, they wanted the grandchild to be a U.S. citizen. I mean, it's not
right.
Chris Matthews' idea that the grandparents thought he was going to be president is just silly. Every parent wanted their child in 1961 and today to be a U.S. citizen, even if they weren't born here. Because look, you get to be in the Little League as a U.S. citizen. You get to be a driver's license, a passport. You don't have to report to the immigration authorities to remain in the United States. You don't need a visa. Every grandparent in 1961 would want their child to be registered in Honolulu as a U.S. citizen, even if they were born in Kenya.
Sure. And so it isn't some grand conspiracy. It is simply that they wanted their child to be a U.S. citizen.
Sure.
And so if he was born in Mombasa, Kenya, and when you went to Kenya, how were you treated?
Well, I was actually, deported, but since they did not want me investigating Barack Obama, the last day I was there, I was going to give a press conference. I was apprehended by the Kenyan immigration authorities with military, with armed, with automatic weapons. A pretty dangerous 64-year-old guy with gray hair. And since then, though, I've been in regular touch with people within Kenya, and I've gotten a lot of documents out of Kenya demonstrating that even the Kenyan government believed Obama was born there. A search of the birth records in 1961, the Kenyan government demonstrated the birth records had been criminally altered so as to eliminate the record of Barack Obama's birth and disguise the fact that he'd ever been born there.
Jeez. All right, the name of the book is Where's the Birth Certificate? And you also had Unfit for Command that affected the 2004 race with Senator John Kerry, giving us facts before not known and anticipate the same thing will happen next year. And at some point, Dr. Jerome Corsi, how do these things have about a remaining minute and a half? How does this ever come to a head? How does this ever have a resolution?
I think we'll be calling, I'm working on filing criminal charges on the White House for, I think there will be criminal charges filed very soon for having fraudulently produced a birth certificate asking for an FBI investigation. And by the way, the Esquire article saying the book had been withdrawn was a complete lie. Esquire later published in the Day last week that it was a satire, but the book was never withdrawn. It's fully available, always has been available. I'm still asking where's the birth certificate. The book, Where's the Birth Certificate, is available in bookstores all over the country, Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, signed editions with the WorldNet Daily Superstore.
All right, and just go to WND and you get all you want right there.
Right, and I'm continuing to write articles. You'll find new information coming out about this. We're fully supporting the book, and we believe the birth records released by Barack Obama on April 27th, the so-called long-form birth certificate, is fraudulent.
All right, Dr. Jerome Corsi, WorldNetDaily.com, WND.com. You're a great American. Godspeed, and let's see what happens in the future.
Thanks, Bill. Look forward to talking with you again.
You're the man. Dr. Jerome Corsi. And
the only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.